The better part of valor.
Broken chairs, upended tables, and shattered vases block the stairs. Splintered planks shift precariously.
Margren's fire casts light in dark places.
Lord Valtas's will. Last will and testament has been carefully drawn up on a stained piece of sackcloth. It lists Lord Valtas's various titles and holdings, ending with the following: should no member of my family survive, it is my wish that my wealth and property be dispensed to the Crucible Knights. Let my wife and children and me be buried with my forebears in the Valtas family tomb, at the right hand of Duke Hadret. Signed, Valerio Valtas, 5th Lord of House Valtas.
The better part of valor.
Lord Valtas says, Saida, let us in. Lady Valtas says, it's safe, come out now. Emilio Valtas, open the door, Saida. The female Dargul sniffs the air. and whirls around hissing, "Survivor!"
I shall be discreet. I'll have this open in no time. It's done.
Valtas Manor Key. This ornate brass key displays the symbol of House Valtas, a crossed sword and spear. Valtas Groundkeeper Letter. This is a note addressed to the household staff. Please see to it that the family mausoleum is swept and the marble polished. The key is hanging as always in the kitchen by the oven. Black and white cat. This sharp-eyed cat is a prodigious mouser and often goes bounding off the path in search of small prey. One light shines from behind the map. There's a ragged hole to the outside as if someone dug through. One light shines from behind the map. There's a ragged hole to the outside as if someone dug through. So it could be whoever this Saida is. They dug through. Is it a he or a she? By the name, I'm assuming it's a she. So this implies Saida has escaped this house by digging a hole to the outside. Alright?
Let's see what we found.
These vaults are sealed shut and sticky with cobwebs. Nestled among the candles are the odds and ends of a patchwork family memorial. Violin lucis, a cameo etching of a woman in finery, and a turquoise necklace.
It's done.
Iridescent scarab figurine. This Andra figurine is shaped like a small beetle. Its colorful shell catches the light in strange ways, changing hues as it's turned into one's hands. As it's turned in one's hands, summon Andra beetle. Saida, a little girl, cowers in the back of the tomb, her face streaked with dirt, and even in the shadows, you can tell she's far too thin. She watches you holding her breath. Arismito says, "It's alright, you're safe." She inches into the candlelight. Her clothes are a little more than filthy rags now, but ripped and stained fabric looks like embroidered silk. She says, "You have to be quiet. Noise brings the hungry people." Sagani stands stock still, looking at the girl as if at a wounded rabbit. Aurok's shadow looks like she's been on her own for weeks. Saida says, "My name is Saida. Are you hiding from them too?" She watches the door of the vault, her eyes wide and careful. "You're Saida? I came across some darguls in a house," says Arismital. Saida's eyes widen. "You saw mother and father and Emilo? How did you get away?" Arismital says, "Let's not worry about that right now. We should focus on getting out of here." Saida picks at a thumbnail, watching you. She nods slowly. Arismital says, "Who are the hungry people?" Saida whispers, and her eyes run with terror. "The ones outside, they don't sleep or die, but they eat." Arismital says, "Tell me what happened to you." Saida's eyes take on a distant look. Her legs start to tremble. Arismital says, "You're frightened, and you've been stuck here for too long, but try to remember what happened before." Saida takes a deep breath and stares at the stone floor. There was a big noise and light in the sky. Everyone thought it was a storm, but then people started waking up after they died. Saida twists her shredded sleeve into knots. Saida says, "Mother and father and Emilo boarded up the door, but the hungry people found our house." Saida's fidgeting becomes more agitated. "They fought, but the hungry people always get up again. They broke through the door and mother told me to hide. And then I came here to hide, but the door got stuck, and I didn't know when it would be safe outside." Arismital says, "Where's your family?" Saida says, "At the house. Mother told me to hide and not let anyone in. Then I heard a lot of noise, fighting and yelling, and..." Saida's eyes glazed over, and then Mother told me to open the door again, but she didn't sound right. Arismito says, "You need to get out of here." Arismito says, "Is it safe? Are the hungry people out there?" Arismito says, it's still dangerous, but the path to the main gate should be clear. Run for it." Saida says, "I won't let anything catch me, I promise."
Margaret's fire.
The better part of valor.
I'll take a look.
Ramble. Crumpled page from Aldhelm's journal. Day 7. A week of study and we're still none the wiser about this device. Rindik remains optimistic. I don't know what I'd do without his spirit. Rindik's letter. Dearest Mother and Father, you will be pleased to hear that I've learned much already since coming to the city. There are many incredible ruins nearby, and Master Graig has allowed me to accompany him on a number of expeditions. I'm writing to you from inside an ancient Engwithan tower. There's an entire district built up around it, but the locals have mostly left the tower untouched. They have let us set up temporary living quarters here, so our work can continue uninterrupted. It is an unsettling place at times, but Master Graig has been a constant comfort, and he is quick to remind me that the things we learn from this tower may one day help us find a cure for Widewind's legacy. I'd better get some rest now. Mr. Graig likes to get an early start to the day. All my love, Rindig. Dearest Mother and Father, Essence shimmers and pulsates within the strange device. The mattress is lumpy and smells of old straw, but whoever slept here last made it neatly.
Let's see what lies this way.
Page from Aldhelm's journal. Day 2. We've completed our measurements of the machine, thanks to Trindic's youthful agility. Further examination is required to discover its intended use.
Let's see what we found.
Nice and quiet.
Patting the scratchy old coverlet thickens the air with dust. No one has used this bed in weeks.
Margaren's fire casts light in dark places.
Folded page from Aldhelm's journal. Day 10. Patrons grow impatient with the lack of quantifiable results. They should drag themselves out of their mansions and spend a few nights here, if they think it's so easy. Letter from Icantha, Aldhelm. I did indeed receive your recent summons, as well as the two that came before it. I've been wanting for you to present yourself on my doorstep, so that I could give you my answer in person. A firm and unwavering no. I won't help you. In fact, I relish the idea of you and your team of glorified engineers sitting in that tower, sweating over the runes I've studied for years. Nothing gives me greater pleasure than knowing that my research, which you've long disparaged, is the missing piece in your mundane little puzzle. As you well know, it's knowledge I've always valued. I'm just around the corner. I encourage you to find me should you wish to rehash this conversation in person. Yours truly, Ikantha. The pulling and pounding energy of what? The pulling, pounding energy in the machine feels even stronger up here. Aldhelm's journal, day 11. Finally got out of the tower to clear our heads. Beasts take the patrons. We'll finish the study on our own terms, our own time, just as I said as much to Trindig. The sky came to life with stray lightning. I say it's a good omen, but the poor lad's spooked. Only cure for that is a good night's sleep.
Nice and quiet.
The Works of the Engwithans, a comprehensive guide. The scroll contains a pen and ink diagram of the Adra device running through the tower. Despite copious measurements and carefully drawn detail, it gives no indication of the machine's purpose.
Let's see what we found.
Let's try this configuration. Still nothing. confounded device.
Standing near the device feels like being blown about by a storm gale. The stone steps hum with energy. Aldhelm. A man hunches over the strange mechanism, his spine a sharp ridge rising from his arched back. He is barely clothed in filthy rags, and the patches of skin you see are mottled green. A spoiled stench emanates from him. He is so intent on his work that he doesn't notice you until your shadow falls over him. When he turns and sees you, he snarls and scuttles behind the Aldra pedestal. Only his bared teeth seem to have escaped decay. His eyes are yellowed and bloodshot, but they flicker with intelligence. He averts his gaze and holds a hand in front of his face.
Shouldn't be here. What do you want?
Arismital says, "Tell me what happened here."
That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Aldhelm hisses. He smashes a fist into the Aldra pillar. His hand makes a crunching noise but doesn't bleed.
Forgive me. Forgive me.
Aldhelm covers his face with his other hand.
Research. We came to do research on the tower. Some commission from gods. It hardly matters now.
Aldhelm clenches his fists in concentration. Alos' lips twist in disgust. If I had a copper skate for every fool animalster whose thirst for knowledge led to a disaster, well, I never would have ended up in Gilded Vale, that's for sure. Arismital says, "Whatever happened, I just need you to give me the facts, please."
Something happened on our 11th night. Lights in the sky and a static charge in the air. But we were so careful. We were staying in the chambers below. Trindig, my assistant, said he saw a robed figure lurking around the tower. Wore a mask. Carried knives at his sides. A trick of shadows, I told him. The next morning we felt strange. Like we hadn't eaten in weeks. So dazed that we didn't at first notice the blood around our beds. The strange wounds that had appeared overnight. And the machine. This cursed spire. Dormant for 2,000 years. Lifeless through hundreds of our experiments. And we wake that morning to find it spinning on its own. On its own! How can we stop what we couldn't start?
Is Aldhelm implying that the masked figure with the knives killed him and his teammate while they were asleep? Kana says, "As exciting as the prospect of a living machine may be, I suspect that, given mention of a machine and a masked figure both, there is another explanation."
Years I've been doing this. Years. I know how these things work, but I don't know how this happened. Nowhere to go. That's the problem. Their souls are trapped here like flies in a jar, clinging to rotting meat.
Aldhelm turns to you in a sudden burst of passion. He gazes at the forsaken district beneath the tower. He gestures at the streets. Arismetal says, "Slow down. What does the machine have to do with souls?"
No time to slow down! But I can explain. Hold a magnet over iron splinters and they stick, yes? Rub your hand over weir wool and the hair of your head will follow it. So it is with this machine.
A tremor of frustration runs through his face. Aldhelm looks at you and runs his tongue along the edges of his fine, strong teeth. He quickly looks away. Wait, are you finding me delicious? Get a hold of yourself, man.
It has the power to manipulate souls, but why? For what? And how many others lie buried in the ruins of Erglonfath? No. Focus on this one. It's imprisoned our souls in our bodies. Cut the root between essence and flesh. Left a dwindling soul stuck in a shriveling husk.
I don't understand. Why is cutting the root between essence and flesh causes a soul to be imprisoned in bodies? How does this whole thing work? Arismetal says, "There was a stranger in the tower the night this happened."
I didn't see him. My assistant, he saw him. We laughed. Said he was spooked by the cemetery. Perhaps it was already too late. I don't know what he did, but by morning the machine was on and we were slain. People were already on the streets, complaining of neighbors and family members acting strangely.
Aldhelm hesitates, his lips working soundlessly as if he can't remember or can't say his name. Arismetal says, "You're not like the ghouls in the street."
Not yet, but I will be. My body is dead. My soul, imprisoned in this corpse, only makes it seem otherwise. And as the body decays, so does the mind. Until nothing is left but the hunger. The only way to forestall the process is through a regular infusion of essence. Living flesh is the only ready supply.
Something gurgles in Aldhelm's throat, and he grimaces. Aldhelm heaves and retches, eyeing you strangely.
I'm not proud of any of it. Hunting men and women in the early days of the affliction. Picking off soldiers that came to investigate. But I'd do it again. I'll do it as long as I must to end this disaster.
One shaky hand scratches at his bare, sore-eaten chest.
You could help. Help me end this. Help me find sustenance.
Aldhelm's eyes glitter, and he licks his lips with a cracked and shriveled tongue. Arismetal says, "What happened to the rest of your team?"
By the time I realized what had happened, the district had already been sealed. So we fed when we needed, and locked ourselves in the tower to work. And then there came a time when the hunger struck, and there was hardly anyone left.
So you ate each other? Interesting. Arismetal says, "How can I help?"
Not your help I need, it's Harridan, shrew, squanders her research on frivolities, then refuses to make herself useful. Runes! The runes are the last part of the puzzle. Acantha knows them. She gives them to you, and you can turn the machine off. Release our souls.
Aldhelm snarls. He shivers, scowling. Kana says, wait, runes? The Engwithan runes? She can read them? He speaks of this feat so blandly. Let's talk instead to this Haridan, Arismital. I'd pick her thoughts at time. I'd pick her thoughts a time. Aldhelm says, she wasn't here the night the machine came on, staying with her patron somewhere near. Too good to be burdened with our ignorant company. Arismital says, I'll get the words from Ikantha. Or should I choose, if Ikantha knows to control words, then I don't see why I need your help. Okay, Arismital says, I'll get the words from Ikantha.
Yes. Acantha. She was here. In the district. Probably here still. Always prepared. Clever lady, that one. And perhaps you bring me something. Something to keep me sharp. Then I show you a secret about the machine. Something to make you strong.
Aldhelm. A violent tremor wrecks Aldhelm's body. Kana says there's a saying in Rawatai about feeding sharks. Don't do this, Arismital. If nothing else, you're liable to lose a hand. Okay, I'm going to follow Kana's suggestion. I want to keep the group's cohesion. Saint Ifen's Knot. Ymiran legend holds that Saint Ifen created a miraculous knot that the faithless could not untie. A daring burglary recently cleaned out the myriad precious relics in the Smith's Hall of Ymirgal. Where each treasure once stood, a string was tied, each leading back to an intricate knot in the center of the temple. The burglar left a tantalizing clue in the form of a written prayer to Saint Ifen, but the riddle has stumped the locals. Desperate to recover their artifacts, the priests have reached out to mercenaries and adventurers for help. Nasu is assigned, alright? Aldhelm flinches but attempts a polite smile. Between his ragged lips and large teeth, the effect is disconcerting. Something you need? I should focus. Aldhelm grips the Adra pillar. Must focus. Arismital says, remind me about Ikantha. Aldhelm says, Ikantha, yes. She gave you the words to command the tower? Arismital says, I need to ask you about something else first. Aldhelm says, find her, somewhere here in the district. Arismital says, who and what are you?
15 years at Brackenbury. 7 tours to the ruins beyond Solace Vale. I'm an animancer. Still an animancer.
Aldhelm closes his eyes and holds the sides of his head. His eyes snap open. His gaze lights on the Adra post with sudden recognition. He starts to turn back to the copper dials. Arismital says farewell. 15 years in Brackenbury, 7 tours to the ruins in Solace Vale. Is that supposed to be incredible? I don't know. That's why I'm asking.
I shall be discreet.
You return. What have you come seeking this time?
Arismital says, I need the words that operate the Angwithan machine in the tower.
That fool Aldhelm. He sent you, didn't he? I can hardly believe he's had the cleverness to survive. That simpleton thinks he can understand how to use something without understanding what it is, or why it is.
Ikantha laughs, a noise that blends the crunch of dry leaves with something piercing and white-hot. You feel a hot core of pride smoldering at the center of her soul.
He dabbles with ancient and powerful devices, with all the finesse of a blacksmith. He sends you here to petition me for aid after years of disparaging my research. I'll bet he didn't even tell you the tower's name, did he? That's his problem. Always looking for solutions without caring for meaning.
Ikantha shakes her head as she pokes at the fire with renewed ferocity. Arismital says, tell me the tower's name.
Teir. It's called Teir. They built the machine atop it to contain souls, hold them in place. But the others I've seen, machines scattered all over the Deerwood, are relays, built to move souls.
Ikantha closes her eyes, her voice is suddenly soothing. She stands and turns to you, wiping parchment-dry hands on her clothes. Interesting. This machine is to hold souls, while the others are relays, built to move souls. Interesting. Arismital says, how do you operate the machine atop Teir Nowneth?
Back to these tinkers' concerns. And what would you do with these tethered souls if I told you?
Ikantha crosses her arms over her unmoving chest. Arismital says, I don't know yet.
A level of humility rarely found in my line of work. Most refreshing.
Ikantha says, I could help you, but I won't. The pride lodged in her soul flares up, twisting into the shape of something that writhes and squeals within her. Here, I have specimens aplenty, and time enough to observe them all. Is every scientist's dream? My answer is no. Kana says, what? But what good is observing all this if you're going to hoard it for yourself? Tell her, Arismital. An entire language at your fingertips, and she hides it away? Should I try to extinguish her pride? Arismetal says, "You're dead. What does any of this matter?" Ikantha says, "Because my research will outlive me, I'll have time and opportunity enough to accomplish more than any animancer in the history of the field." The pride sparks and squalls. Arismetal says, "And who will know about it?" Arismetal says, "And who will know about it?" The pride thing flickers as the flames around it abate. Ikantha says, "All I've learned, years of studying the Engwithan language, no one understands it better than me. That counts for something." Arismetal says, "Your opportunities here are finite. One day that knowledge will die with you." Arismetal says, "But what use is it?" Ikantha's pride rages inside her. Uses? Why must something so pure be fashioned into a blunt instrument? Arismetal says, "Your opportunities here are finite. One day that knowledge will die with you." The pride hisses and sputters. It's little more than an ember now. "You're wrong," says Ikantha, but there's no conviction in her voice. "I'll build it forever. I'll cling to it. That will give me something." Arismetal says, "Will that really be enough for you?" The dying cinder clings to life. Ikantha says, "It will. It must be." Arismetal says, "Teach me what you know. I'll make sure that it grows and your legacy lives on." Your words finally quench her pride, and all that remains is a blackened diamond-hard rock. You cast it away where it melts into the darkness.
So be it. My studies and efforts shall grow through yours.
Ikantha's voice is calm and quiet.
These are the words you need.
Ikantha's cold, dry fingertips rest on your temples, and you feel her reaching into your mind, forming images from the darkness. Runes flash through your head, but they're no longer just pictures, they have meaning, and you understand them, they're commands. Something triggers in your mind, a distant memory unearthed from a past life long since buried. You can see a vast array of runes, far more than Ikantha has shown you, and you know their sound and their meaning, and how they fit together. The language of Engwith once more at your command.
Something has awakened in your mind. You understand far more than I ever did. Take this knowledge then, and do what you will with Teir Nowneth. Now that you understand its purpose, it will serve you in whatever way you wish.
Ikantha retreats from you. Kana says, "A speaker of dead tongues now," and so he surpasses 100 frustrated scholars in the matter of a few moments. I don't suppose you could look at a few books for me? Arismetal says, "What do I do with the tower now that I know these words?"
Turn it off, I expect. That will be easy now that you can read the runes. The vessels would still roam, but striking them down would return their essence to the cycle. But be careful. That machine controls hundreds of souls, and that volume of essence could easily overload it. Improperly channeling the essence would destroy the machine along with the souls. It would be a terrible loss for posterity.
Duran says, if only we could get all the animancers together in one place, perhaps we could destroy their souls as well. Oh, Durans doesn't like animancers? I see. Arismital says, you said the other towers around the Dirawood were constructed to move souls. Why would the Angwithans have wanted to do that? Ikantha says, another mystery. Hypothetically, anywhere they wished. The real question, as always, is why. To intermix them the way a player shuffles his deck, the way a farmer rotates his fields, to collect them like butterflies under glass, to melt them down for raw essence? Unfortunately, I don't know. Arismital says, remind me, how do you know so much about the tower? Ikantha says, I read the runes like a journal. I understand their meaning. People like Aldhelm try to read them like instruction manuals, and in so doing, they miss their true meaning completely. Arismital says, I still don't understand why the Angwithans would want to build a machine that tethers souls. Ikantha says perhaps they didn't. Perhaps that's why they built no other machines like this one. We now see the Angwithans as masters of soul manipulation, but they couldn't have attained their expertise without copious trial and error. Perhaps this was one such experiment. So Ikantha speculates that the machines are not created by the Angwithans. So the Angwithans possibly were just using it, and not the inventor of it. Ikantha says, certainly. Arismital says, explain how the control words work. Ikantha says, harnessing the power of Teir Nowneth is about understanding what it was designed to do. You know the words and their meanings, you can speak them and the tower shall obey. Arismital says, that's all, thanks. Okay, what would happen to Ikantha now? Is she going to remain here, like this?
Always a pleasure to speak with someone who appreciates true learning.
Oh, she's a vampire. The same enemies type that I fought in the endless path of Otnua. Ikantha, the vampire, smiles with bloodless lips. Arismital says, I'd like to ask you a few more questions about Teir Nowneth. A jagged Adra pillar rises in front of you, encased in stonework and run through with copper veins. The panel is covered with runes, which you can now understand. You recognize words for end and for hold. The dial is currently fixed on hold. You also recognize by an inscription that the manner in which you turn the dial is a means of throttling the device. Maximize the machine's throttle in hopes of overloading the device. Uttering a command, you give the dial a violent twist. The moving spires spin faster and faster, wobbling from their axis. The light filling the machine quickly becomes too bright to behold. You look away and cover your ears, but the thunderous crash that follows shakes the floor beneath you. When you look back, the machine is in ruins, never to be used again.
Still and silent. It's finally over. Still and silent. It's finally over. Still and silent. It's finally over.
Dunried Row Messenger says, "Beg your pardon, I have a message for you. You are summoned to Hadred House, where Lady Webb wishes to meet with you as soon as possible." Adair says, "Not much you can do in these parts without Lady Webb knowing about it. At least that's what I'd always heard. Yes, it's true." Arismital says, "How did you know where to find me?" Dunried Row Messenger says, "Well, it's Lady Webb. She knows everything." Arismital says, "Tell me about Lady Webb." Dunried Row Messenger says, "Do you not know Lady Webb? She's, well, no one's seen her exactly in a long time, but she's the mistress of Dunried Row. Has been for as long as anyone can remember." The messenger pauses, eyeing passers-by with suspicion. Quietly he continues, "She's supposed to be older than anybody, and she never leaves her room. Some say she's wasted away and she's just a pile of bones kept animated by dark magics. Why are you eyeing passers-by? This place is abandoned, there's no one here. Are you hallucinating, messenger?" The messenger says she's still at it, best anyone can tell. Learning things, keeping us safe, pulling the strings behind the throne too, it said. Has a ring of ciphers doing her bidding, telling her everything that goes on. You do wrong in this country before you go asking the gods for forgiveness. Best you ask Lady Webb first. Ooh, Arismital is afraid. Arismital says, what's Dunria the row? The messenger says, a whole mess of ciphers run out of Hadrat House. They make it their business to keep the peace, but they don't like you to see them do it. Problems in the city have a way of going away on their own, and when it happens, you can make a pretty good guess as to why. Arismital says, where can I find Hadrat House? The messenger says, in Brackenbury, my lord. The southwest corner, you'll find the lady upstairs. Arismital says, very well. The messenger says, I've been instructed that I'm to answer any questions you might. Okay. You might want to leave this place, messenger. Well, I've destroyed the machine, but who knows, there might be undead lurking around that I haven't had a chance to destroy. Saida says, there's the nice man who helped me. Justiciar says, and thank the Iron Arm for it. We'll get you sorted out at the keep. Yay! Oh, you mean the Justiciar was talking to the girl? Oh, I thought the Justiciar is going to give me rewards back at the keep. I guess he was just talking to the girl and not me. Alright then. Justiciar says, the tower, it's off. Does this mean the curse on Heritage Hill is lifted? Arismital says, Defiance Bay owes me. I'd better get a manor in Brackenbury for this. Justiciar says, well, that's not for me to decide, but I'm sure the city will see your, well, reward. I'll keep an eye on things here, says the Justiciar. You're supposed to guard this checkpoint, right? How could you let that messenger go through? You're not doing your job well then. Wheeler says, any news from Heritage Hill? Arismital says, your guards were charmed by the spirit of a woman named Leira. I've gotten rid of her. Wheeler's tired eyes grow round. By the flame you found her, my missing commander? Wheeler heaves a sigh and loses her gaze among the floor tiles. And she was calling to the watch from beyond the grave? It doesn't make sense, but nothing in that accursed district does. What happened to the soldiers under her spell? Arismital says, they didn't make it. Wheeler says, I see. Nevertheless, thank you for your help. You've left me with as many questions as answers. But at least I know what happened to my troops and Commander Leira. Please accept this as a token of my gratitude. If there's nothing else, I must attend to my duties.
You're from Gilded Vale? Then you're close to home.
Close can mean a lot of things.
Surely you'll go back when this is all over.
Dunno. Guess that all depends. I must say, I'm impressed.
A messenger from the Ducal Palace in Defiance Bay has arrived at Kait Nua. What? Guffle the drunkard says, hey, I just need a second of your time. Palace messenger says, I bear a message from the Ducal palace. Okay, I'll talk to the drunkard first. Gaffol the drunkard says, "Hello. Greetings, Lord Arismital, I mean. I was hoping to talk to you. I'm in a spot of trouble. This man's breath stinks of ale." Arismital says, "Very well, let's hear it." You call your allies together and motion for the petitioner to step forward. Gaffol says, "Thing is, I've worked up a few debts in Dierford and a few other places, more than a few. I haven't got the coin, my lord. I'd pay it off if I could. I was thinking maybe you'd know of someone looking to hire on or something. I'm willing to work." Arismital says, "Don't worry, I can settle this." Arismital says, "Thank you, my lord. I wasn't sure anybody would care, really. Wait, 1200 CP? Arismital says, "This ought to be enough to settle your debts." Gaffol's eyes widen. "It sure is. Gods keep you, my lord. I'll set out to Aina's rest. See about paying out what I owe. Won't they be surprised? Just don't make this a habit, okay? Next time you come to me about the same problem, you're on your own." Palace messenger says, "Greetings, my lord. I bear an urgent message from Chancellor Warin of Defiance Bay. He requests that you meet with him at your earliest convenience in the Ducal Palace. Your claim on Kait Nua has been called into question by the Gathbin family. Earl Bademar has issued a ruling on the matter, but both you and Lord Gathbin must be present. Oh, dang it. Someone is contesting my rule of this castle. I'm the one who clears this place. Well, Arismital and his companions, and now someone wants to claim it after I've done all the work of rebuilding and clearing this place? GTF, oh here." Arismital says, "Who's Chancellor Warin?" Messenger says, "He's an arbiter of legal matters for Earl Bademar of the Grasp." Arismital says, "Tell me about this Lord Gathbin." Messenger says, "An old Idiran lineage, I believe." Messenger looks around the great hall. The former lord of this stronghold, a distant relative of Lord Gathbin, allied himself with the losing side during the War of Defiance. Oh. So a relative of Lord Gathbin sided with the losing side of the War of Defiance. So Lord Gathbin's relative sided with Idir. Interesting. Arismital says, "Kait Nua is mine." Messenger says, "The Gathbin family disagrees, as your claim is not based on lineage. An official ruling is required to remedy this dispute." Arismital says, "I'll go meet him then." Messenger says, "The Chancellor will await you in the Records room of the ducal palace in first fires. The messenger bows, then strides away.
My lord, you've received a letter, delivered with some urgency as it happens. I thought the messenger might swoon, poor dear. It's from Stalwart. Apparently the mayor, Renengild, has heard of your success here at Cadnua and hopes you can be of aid to her people as well.
Arismital says, "What does Renengild want?"
Stalwart is a mining community, and at one time they enjoyed a great deal of influence. Renengild hopes to reclaim old glories, I expect. It seems she's intent on gaining access to Durgan's battery, and she's offering quite the reward to anyone who can get inside.
A reward, she says, for getting into the battery. That's a reward of its own, surely.
Arismital says, "What is Durgan's battery?"
The dwarves of the battery fashioned Durgan's steel, and with it they crafted the finest arms and armor the Deerwood has ever known. But the keep has been abandoned for centuries, and none remain that know their secrets. There are many legends concerning the battery. As the Earl told it, the dwarves fought amongst themselves, each seeking to use the battery to further his or her own ambitions. Greed and cruelty brought down the battery, and now the spirits of those same dwarves roam the halls. Whatever happened, the battery has been impenetrable ever since. A shame. I don't doubt that there are great treasures still within those halls.
Arismital says, "I do enjoy vast amounts of wealth."
Oh, just think! The greatest of the dwarven strongholds, ours to explore!
Yes. Temper your excitement. We don't know what we're going to face there.
I should mention that among those rumored to have answered Renengild's summons is a certain group I believe you may have an interest in. Followers of Woodica, intent on reaching Stalwart and the battery. I do not know what they seek there, but I thought it worth mentioning, given your interest in the ruins at Defiance Bay.
Woidica, so the same people that belong to the group that I encounter in the catacombs. The acolytes and her subordinates are followers of Woidica, right? Is this them, or is it a different group from the same organization?
Now that I've delivered Renengild's message, there is also a local matter of some concern, my lord. A mercenary band has been sighted to the northeast. I believe they mean to take Consul Hot's tower, and I don't expect the Archmage will go quietly.
Consul Hot's one of the greatest wizards of our generation!
Aloth fidgets and flutters, vacillating between anxiety and excitement. He appears to be at a loss for words.
The Torn Bannermen are a deadly fighting force, and Consul Hot himself has sent many travelers to their graves. I would caution you to stay clear of the region if you do travel to the White March. It is not that I doubt your courage, my lord, but Consul Hot alone boasts power of a different scale altogether to those foes you have faced thus far. Given more time, perhaps, you will match him. If the bannermen succeed in their efforts, I fear they may turn their attention to Cadnua. I will keep you apprised of the situation, my lord.
Arismital says, "Who is Consul Hout?"
A famed archmage. I am given to understand that the Brackenberry Sanitarium puts much stock in his work as regards the manipulation of the soul. His spells are widely circulated. But he is poorly regarded in many circles. Some call him a madman, or else cruel and barbarous. He must be very old by now. Perhaps that is why the Torn Bannermen believe they can best him.
The steward pauses. Arismital says, "Do you know anything else about these mercenaries?"
Little enough, I'm afraid. The Torn Bannermen are well supplied and well organized, and there are rumors that they are backed by an unknown benefactor.
Oh, just like Arismital, he is also supported by an unknown benefactor, a group of them.
They have proved remarkably effective in the past, and they are certainly a threat now.
According to the steward, if the mercenary band succeeded in taking Consul Hout's tower, they'll set their sight on Kaitnua next. So it's clear that the mercenary band is the enemy. Arismital says, "Farewell, my dear steward."
Safe travels, my lord. I trust all is well. Please let me know if there's anything I can do to help.
Last thing the Deerwood needs is another foreign colony.
I wonder if Hiravias is here in Bright Hollow. Ah, there it is, Hiravias.
As a peripatetic loner, I'm not privy to the latest news, but the Hollowborn Children is a tale that has reached even my reclusive ears. Or rather, ear.
Arismital says, "What do the Glenfathan druids think of this plight?"
It's been a long time since I've spoken with my circle. They'd probably tell you what I'd tell you. This plight was most certainly the consequence of someone trespassing into Nguithan places, not meant for folk. I mean, what else other than the gods could inflict punishment of such impressive scale?
Hiravias looks askance and shrugs. Arismital says, "What are your thoughts on the Hollowborn?"
Any time a life is separated from its soul, I wanted to pretend it was just a rumor when I first heard of it.
Hiravias' eye meets yours and his usual default smile becomes a frown. His voice trails off. He has several starts and stops before finally deciding how to finish his thoughts.
In my youth, I'd curse the dear Woodens for being ignorant to spoilers that breed out of control. But soulless babies? What heartless gods would inflict that kind of tragedy? No parent or child deserves to be a part of that horror.
Aris Mittal says, let's talk of other matters.
Need something?
Iravias asks with a raised eyebrow. Aris Mittal says, tell me about yourself.
My second favorite subject.
Iravias runs his fingers through his scalp, preening his fur.
What would you like to know?
Aris Mittal says, how did you come to be trained as a druid? Iravias thumbs his half-shredded ear and thinks to himself for several seconds. It wasn't entirely by choice, not at the start at least. My ambition was to be a hunter. I merely arrived by a different trail. As a child, an Anamfath came to visit. An honored guest is occasion for a grand chase, but I was left out, instructed instead to be cupbearer to the old wise one while the rest were on hunt. I'm sure you can guess what happens. Wise Anamfath gives dumb child a shred of attention. We ended up talking until the hunters returned. He gave me. Iravias' hands dart across his body, scouring the pockets and folds of his tunic. This. Iravias presents a rusted iron medallion fashioned in the likeness of a hound's head, a common icon amongst the frontiersmen, explorers, and other seekers faithful to Galawain. The Anamfath insisted I be trained and none in my village would defy him. Now, Iravia smiles broadly. I don't need a bow to hunt. Aris Mittal says, hey, what do you mean you don't need a bow to hunt? Do you use other methods to hunt? What? Druid spells? Aris Mittal says, where are you from originally?
My mother's crotch. You?
Iravia says that. Okay, funny guy. Aris Mittal stares silently.
I grew up in Erglonfoth, specifically in and around Thane Bog. My people, the Fisher Crane tribe, are migrant stewards of the land. I've walked the whole of Glonfoth many times.
He's from Thane Bog. His tribe is called Fisher Crane. Okay. Aris Mittal says, what's the story behind the symbol of Weil on your eye patch? Iravia says, Weil is known as the eyeless face, so his symbols seem a good fit for my eye patch. Iravias absent-mindedly runs his finger along the strap of the patch band. Weil iconography is rather popular in my home tribe, but it seems he is not as widely venerated here in the Deerwood. I remember thinking that if I consecrated my eye to He who obfuscates and reveals, then maybe with enough devotion, Weil would make use of old ruined thing. Iravias pulls on the eye patch strap and lets it go with a loud snap. So if you think you see me staring at the rumps and cleavage, it's really just the will of Weil controlling my gaze, honest. Yeah, sure. Aris Mittal says, what's your relationship with Galawain? Iravia says, I was raised as a disciple of the Speaker God. He is the champion of the hunt, be it the simple struggle for sustenance or the scholarly pursuit of knowledge. In my older years, I found Iravias cuts himself off, shakes his head, and starts again. Life has shown me I am more suited to the ways of Wile. The furious hunt for knowledge often outpaces the journey to real understanding. Arismital says, Druids are known for changing into animals. What sort of creatures can you become? Iravias takes a half step backward as you ask the question. All sorts of things, Iravias says quietly with a long, uncomfortable gaze. Iravias stares at you blankly, arms folded. Let's discuss something else. Arismital says, any man with your scars has a story to tell. I'm just going to ask you later if you don't tell me now.
Yes, I suppose you should know.
Iravias grips his forehead and turns his face away from you.
I struggled with spirit shifting, the final rite of passage in my druidic training. I prayed to Galawain for insight and, in the style of seekers of old, went to the forest, alone, to ask for guidance. Then I got my answer, an answer at least, in the form of a vibrantly colored Stelgar that pounced from the underbrush and made a salient demonstration of its capacity to eat things 1/15th its size.
Oh, okay. Arismital says, that's terrible. I'm thankful you managed to survive.
Aye, it only cost me half my face. And for the record, the Stelgar limped home with worse.
Iravias' fingers play gently on his ear stump before a smile comes over his little face. So, how did you survive it?
As the beast was lopping off bits of my handsomeness, I remember trying to fight back, swinging with arms too short to reach. I felt I had the energy for one last swipe at the beast's nose, and when I lashed out with a punch, my arm felt twice as massive, and my fingers sprouted talons. In a rush of power, I shifted into a mirror of my assailant. Apparently, he couldn't pick on someone his own size. By the battle's end, his severed arm was in my maw. The beast limped away in defeat.
Arismital says, that's quite an impressive tale. Indeed. Iravias says, I thought learning to spirit shift would win me some respect. Maybe trap myself an idle lass with a lust for little men. Alas, I might have been better off staying a novice. Why? An idle lass with a lust for little men. Well, I have to say that I kind of have a little bit of fetish towards women who are taller than me. Not so much taller, but, somewhat taller than me. It's not a must though. I mean, I'm capable of appreciating women even if they're not taller than me. It's just that it's some kind of a fantasy of mine. Iravia says, when I wandered back to my village, they saw my wounds and asked what happened. I showed them. The name they called my form was the Autumn Stelgaer, and Iravias' mouth opens, but he hesitates for a long moment before choosing his words. They were not impressed. The Riau of my circle believe the Autumn Stelgaer to be a heinous abomination. It is said that if it eats you, your soul is invariably lost. As this was my first and most intuitive form, they deemed me a carrier of its evil. Even though I never so much as threatened my kin, I was ruled unfit and cast out. Iravia sighs, scratching his scarred face. I don't know what message Galawain was trying to send. The only lesson I learned was that the Seeker God will punish you for seeking. Okay. Yeah. Arismital says, so you're some sort of soul cannibal? Iravia stares you at with a frown before covering his face in his hands. No, he mutters. At least I think not. I've never actually sat down and eaten an entire person to find out. I'm not that curious to find out. Arismital says, you didn't choose your spirit-shifting form? Iravia says no. With a huff. He says it with a huff. It chose me, or so I imagine. I always assume I would shift into a stoat. Seems more true to my nature. He points to the embossed pattern of wile on his eye patch. As the obscure teaches, when the answer is inscrutable, one must be content to ponder the question. Arismital says, were you at least recognized as a proper druid? Iravia's brow furrows. No, but I know I passed an initiation rite 5 times more perilous than any of those kin betrayers that insisted I was a failure. Okay, kin betrayers. I like that. I like that label. Kin betrayers. It sounds rad. Arismital says, can you learn to spirit shift into something less terrifying? Iravia says, already can and sometimes do. He says with a beaming smile that quickly returns to a scowl. But the druids of my circle assign great meaning to one's first form. I'll always be unclean to them. Arismital says, thank you for sharing your story. It was amazing.
Well, if you don't know me, you can't trust me. And if you can't trust me, odds are low you'll leap in front of a flying arrow to save my life.
Hiravias blushes and tugs at his tunic. Odds are low that I will leap in front of a flying arrow to save your life. You're right, I'm not gonna try to do that. What I'm going to try is to keep reminding you to keep your head down so you don't get hit by arrow. Okay?
I've been meaning to visit the druids of Twin Elms to see if they know more about my spirit shift. If our journey takes us there, perhaps they can enlighten me with more information about the Autumn Stelgar. But for now, maybe we can talk about something less depressing?
Iravias clears his throat and puts on a pained smile. Arismital says, I want to hear more about Galawain and Wile. Iravia stares at you blankly with his one eye. Oh, not sure what more there is to say on the subject, unless you were itching for a religious debate. No, I'm not here to debate. I just want to know. Arismital says, tell me more about your thoughts on Wile. Iravia says, I came to know Wile in earnest in the first year of my exile. I asked myself why Galawain would punish me for asking questions. What just and fair God would punish me for doing as he asks? Questioning why I had been mauled just drove me mad. At the height of my worry, I would have dreams where I only saw with my injured eye. My healthy eye became blind in my dreams. Iravias lifts up the eye patch to gently itch at the socket. You catch a quick glimpse of a puckered and scarred abscess under the Wile embroidered patch. So, one afternoon I stitched a stylized eye motif on the patch. I like to think of it as my self-initiation rite into the Brotherhood of Wile. Wile is not an instructive or overbearing deity. He does not freely dispense wisdom and expects all of us to question and explore with our own minds. Wile reminds me that curiosity is being receptive to any and all truths, not hunting for any one answer. Arismital says, Has Weil ever actually spoken directly to you, or sent you a sign? Hiravia says no, never directly, he says with a smile, which is as it should be, given what he represents. I especially like how Weil never sends wild beasts to maul me, but maybe I have low expectations of such things. Arismital says, let's speak about something else. Arismital says, what more can you tell me about Galawain? A frown overcomes Hiravias's face as he ponders your question. Consider it a lapsed devotion. I will always respect the Seeker God, but he visited ruination on me when all I sought was knowledge, just as he thought it should be. Hiravias smashes his fingers together and flexes his digits until the joints pop and click. Galawain left his mark on me. When I see my shifted reflection, I'm reminded of his presence. Galawain still inspires my fear, just not my worship. Arismital says, do you think there's any possibility that Galawan is trying to help you, albeit in strange ways? Arismital says, in fairness to Galawan, you did learn to spirit shift after the attack. Are you not thankful for that? I don't know. what should I say to him? Okay, let's choose number one. Arismital says, in fairness to Galawan, you did learn to spirit shift after the attack. Are you not thankful for that? Hiravia stares at you in silence for a long moment before erupting. Thankful? Thankful for being marked as a pariah? Hiravia stares a chunk of red and orange off the side of his head with a groan. You see tiny buds of new hairs begin to regrow almost instantly. He lets out a sigh until his little body stops shaking. I respect what you're trying to say. Yes, Galawain gave me my form and I certainly wasn't learning it on my own. I guess. Hiravius tries to make eye contact but his gaze falls off to the ground. I guess I'm thankful that he gave me a true hunter's form, just as I prayed. Maybe I'm the fool for wanting the wrong thing. I feel sorry for him now. Well, I feel sorry for him earlier, but it's more now. Arismital says, tell me about Eir Glanfath. Hiravia says, it's a verdant land of history, culture, and natural beauty. Hiravia's voice falls into a half whisper as he adds, I know we already have enough unwanted trespassers, so I recommend you never visit. Okay. Arismital says, did the forested kin give you hard time growing up?
Indeed. I'm sure you're well aware of how much Orland children squabble.
Hiravia says with a chuckle.
I was the shortest of my age clutch, shorter even than others with meadow plumage. The huntmaster of my tribe singled me out as too short to hunt, and made it a rule that anyone taller than me was allowed to prowl with the adults.
Oh my goodness. Why was the huntmaster subject Hiravius to this situation? What?
I grew up in Glanfath, specifically in and around Thane Bog. My people, the Fisher Crane tribe, are migrant stewards of the land. I've walked the whole of Glanfath many times. My second favorite subject.
Arismital says, "Thank you for sharing. We should be on the move." Iravia says, "And thank you for listening," he says with a slight bow before falling into marching order behind you.
Need something?
That's all for now. Let's continue our journey.
We can speak another time. Lead the way.
Iravias nods. What? Lord Björnwiger arrives again? Is it the same problem?
Amazing. Here.
Adair, you have said you fought in the Saints' War, but for which side?
The one that blew up my god.
I didn't mean anything by it. I imagine a man with a head made of fire and light could be very convincing.
Funny thing about Dear Woodens. With all that fire and light, they just treated him like another authority figure.
Marshal Forovian says, I believe you have business with Chancellor Warin. Thank you for coming, Arismital. I've been trying to track you down for some time, says Chancellor Warin. This is Marshal Forovian, Earl Bademar's military advisor. He will serve as a witness for this proceeding. Warin gestures at the man next to him. Forovian says, Well met, Road Warden. Your reputation precedes you, I admit. You've created a bit of a stir throughout the nobility with your reclamation of Kaidnua. Most are still not sure what to think of you. Arismital says, What's this about? Warin says, The legitimacy of your claim to Kaidnua is in question. Earl Bademar has issued a ruling on the matter. Arismital says, I trust the Earl to make a fair judgment. Chancellor Warin says your cooperation is duly noted and much appreciated. All will be made clear once Lord Gathbin arrives. Do you have any questions for me while we wait? Arismital says, What was that about Road Warden? Marshal Forovian says, The one who rules Kaidnua on behalf of the Earl of Yenwood is traditionally known as the Road Warden. Your position might not be entirely official yet, but the title is an appropriate form of address. The Marshal nods and smiles. Marshal Forovian says, In fact, that blade you carry was forged by the very first Road Warden. Marshal Forovian gestures at the sword at your side. I've heard that the Whispers of Yenwood is only ever found by those meant to rule Kaidnua. Arismital says, Tell me about Earl Bademar. Chancellor Warin says, Earl Bademar comes from an esteemed line of lords that rose to prominence after the War of Defiance some 150 years ago. The Deerwood consists of 7 earldoms. The Bademars govern the northern earldom, known as the Grasp. As to the current Bademar, he is as fine a man as I know. It is an honor to serve him. Arismital says, Tell me more about the Grasp. Chancellor Warin says, The Grasp is now the largest of the 7 earldoms after it consumed the pre-war earldom of Yenwood. It encompasses notable settlements such as New Heomar, Geiran's Grasp, Gilded Vale, and of course, Kaidnua. Oh, so Gilded Vale is within the Grasp earldom. I see. And of course Kaidnua as well. Arismital says, Yenwood? Chancellor Warin says, When the Deerwood was a mere colony of Aidir, it was divided into 9 earldoms. When the Aidirans were defeated and ultimately driven out, 2 of the earldoms were absorbed and borders were adjusted. The Yenwood was one such earldom. Arismital says, I have other questions. Chancellor Warin says, Of course. Arismital says, What do you know of Gathbin? Chancellor Warin says, While I've met him but once, it was ample time to determine the character of Lord Arleder Gathbin, or lack thereof. Oh, so honest. He descended from an old Idirian line that predates the War of Defiance. His great-grandfather, Ranig Gathbin, was the Earl of Yenwood during the war, that is, until he was stripped of his lands and driven from the Deerwood. Aris Mittal says, do you know which way Earl Bademar has ruled? Warden says, I'm sorry, my lord, I do not. The Earl's decree is sealed. Aris Mittal says, I don't have any more questions. Okay, so the Earl of Yenwood was driven out. Ranik... What was his name? Ranik... Ranik... I don't... Yeah, Ranik something. I think I remember. Someone says, was it the steward? The steward says something about someone fighting on the losing side. Was the steward referring to the Earl of Yenwood? I don't know. I'm confused. I'm so dumb. My mind is not working right now. Aris Mittal says, I don't have any more questions. Warden says, your timing is impeccable. Here comes Lord Gathbin now. An opulently dressed man strides towards the Chancellor, his sandy hair trailing him like a banner caught in a light breeze, wood hills echoing throughout the hall. An elven woman with cropped hair dressed in dark, glinting male shadows, his steps. Before taking position alongside him, she watches you unabashedly, taking your measure. Please. I'm not a threat. We're not fighting here, right? Lord Gathbin says, let's move past this formality as quickly as possible. I've other matters to attend to. It's well known that Kait Nua belongs to me, by right. And where is this pretender? He who murdered the Raedricks, my own sister and her husband, and now steals my land. Where is this low-born wretch? Oh my god. So Ygritte is Lord Gathbin's sister. But it wasn't me who killed Ygritte. It was Raedric who killed her. If you don't believe me, ask Kolsch. He now rules Gilded Vale, and he can vouch for me. Ask Kolsch. I didn't kill Ygritte. Warren clears his throat and glances at you. Lord Gathbin says, this man here, this is the Lord of Kait Nua. I thought he was just another servant, perhaps a valet or a porter. Aris Mittal says, actually, I'm part of the aristocracy myself. Yeah, from the Examital Plains. Lord Gathbin says, I don't know what distant lands you come from, but your title carries little weight in the Deerwood. Chancellor, read the decree. I'm losing my patience with this backwater fop. I'm surprised that Lord Gathbin didn't try to kill me, because he thought... he thinks that I killed Ygritte, his sister. I thought he would jump at me, as I thought he wanted revenge for thinking that I killed his sister. But I'm surprised. He didn't even try to kill me. Why? Warden breaks the seal on the scroll and unfurls it. Chancellor Warden says, regarding the matter of the Gathbin claim on Kaid Nua, Earl Bademar finds that Gathbin claim was never relinquished. By law, Kaid Nua is the rightful property of the Gathbin family. No, Earl Bademar, please. Lord Gathbin says, I knew it. Gathbin smirks at you triumphantly. Chancellor Warden says, I'm not yet finished reading, my lord. Gathbin rolls his eyes and motions for the Chancellor to continue. Chancellor Warden says, however, the Earl recognizes Arismital's part in reclaiming Kaid Nua, a site that has stood abandoned and even some would say cursed for over a century. Before Kaid Nua is returned to the Gathbin family, the Earl has decreed that Lord Gathbin will provide compensation in the form of... Lord Gathbin says absolutely not. Gathbin folds his arms, a defiant scowl on his face. Chancellor Warden says, my lord? Warden raises his eyebrows. Warden says, the amount is quite reasonable, and a requirement for your land to be returned to you, if you'll just allow me to finish. Lord Gathbin says, I'll not pay a single copper to this miscreant for my ancestral land. Do you think I'm blind to the Earl's motives, lackey? He thinks he can send me a message with this insult. I have a message you can send, that son of a whore. Gathbin raises an open hand as the Chancellor shrinks from him. Arms raised in defense. Oh. He was about to hit the Chancellor. Should I get involved? I guess not. Let's do nothing. Arismital does nothing. Marshal Forwian says, my lord, I suggest you calm yourself immediately. The marshal's tone is calm, but his hand rests on the hilt of his sword. Oh, he's not playing. Okay, you fight. I don't want to fight. The elven woman deftly draws a pistol from her thick leather belt. Her eyes widen in anticipation. Oh, come on. If you guys want to fight, just fight. But at least allow me to leave this room first. I don't want to get involved. Chancellor Warden says, my lords, please, there's no need for violence. Lord Gathbin holds your gaze for several heartbeats, his eyes burning with hatred. Lord Gathbin says, I'll be coming for what's mine, count on it. Come, Captain Emery. We're leaving. Oh, the elven woman's name is Emery? Lord Gathbin sneers defiantly before storming down the hall. The captain lowers her pistol and gives a smirking shrug before following her employer. Chancellor Warden says, well, I can say that Gathbin's reaction was entirely unexpected, through no fault of your own. I'm afraid you've made a powerful enemy. Arismital says, he did seem a little upset, didn't he? Well, it's more than a little, I think. Chancellor Warden says, I've heard he's always been vicious, even as a boy, and he can hold a grudge for a very long time. In any case, Kaid Nua now officially belongs to you since Lord Gathbin has rejected the Earl's decree. Warden hands you a deep blue scepter, which looks to have been carved entirely out of sapphire. Here, this belonged to one of the old lords of Kaid Nua. By right, it's yours now. Arismital says, Have this sent to Lord Gathbin as a token of friendship. Give 10,000 CP. Warden says, that is a generous offer, and I'll make sure it reaches Lord Gathbin. It was a pleasure to finally meet you, my lord. Warden bows. Perhaps we'll speak again under more pleasant circumstances. Marshal Forwin says, farewell, Arismetal. The marshal nods at you and leaves. Okay, so the marshal was not afraid of Lord Gathbin. What I mean is, he was not afraid to challenge Lord Gathbin. So it means that the marshal's authority is equal that or exceeds the authority of a lord, I think. Because the marshal, when Lord Gathbin was about to strike the chancellor, the marshal was ready to unsheath his sword. So he wasn't playing. Huh, interesting. Okay. Records keeper says, this man not says, it's a description. This man busies his slender hands filling court books and rolls of dusty parchment according to some obscure yet deliberate scheme. Okay, that was interesting. Interesting indeed.